Well, we're back for episode 4 of One More Chapter. And I'm Mr. Rogers, Mrs. Rogers, Jay, and Lee. And we're the Ramblin Rogers.
For Jesus.
And so in this episode, we wanted to kind of give the backstory of a situation that we were trying to make a decision on at the time. That God directed our steps, basically. We really weren't trying to make a decision. That decision had pretty much already been made. My wife, concerning some treatment, chemotherapy, she had been totally against it, just to dive right in. That was something she had dug her heels in, did not want to do, just because of the side effects, the percentage of how it would treat the particular type of cancer that she had. About the reoccurrence, even if you took the chemotherapy. And so she just had a lot of reservations about that, and had basically said, heaven looks better to me. And we would tell our doctors that when we would go in. She would say, have the statistics changed? And they would say, no, they haven't. She said, well, heaven looks better to me. I'd rather go home and be with Jesus. And I never pressured her or insinuated or even asked her, hey, will you do chemotherapy? Because I knew that ultimately she would have to go through the physical aspect of it. I'd be there with her every step of the way as her husband. But she would have to go through the physical side of side effects or anything that would happen in that way. So I wanted her to make that decision, and I would support her, whatever that was, however God moved. And so that's what we want to talk about today, is how we God took us in a direction that we really weren't expecting to go.
Yes. So it was in June, we told you last time that that I had gotten the scan, and the liver had revealed 10 spots on the liver. And so the estrogen treatment that I was doing was not working. And so they suggested progesterone, because that and chemo was the last options that I had. And so I started the progesterone treatment, and this was probably around the end of June, first part of July maybe. Doesn't really matter the time frame, but so anyway, I was in my office, my home office, and the progesterone treatment was not, it was my body was not receiving it real well. I was feeling very nauseous and sick, and I just didn't feel well. And so this particular day in my office, I had been praying and talking to the Lord, and I laid hands on my liver. And this will be funny to some of y'all that know where your liver's at, but at that particular time, I did not know which side of the body my liver was on. So I laid hands on both sides of where I thought it was at. And I said, Lord, I know that you are the same God yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and that you still do miracles. And that if you wanted to heal me right now, you could do that. And so, Lord, I asked for that. I said, but also, Lord, we need some direction. I said, because I'm not feeling very well, Lord. And, I have a Gideon heart. And for those that don't know the story of Gideon put these fleeces before the Lord, because the Lord asked him to do something that he was very fearful of doing. And so Gideon put this fleece before the Lord. And so I said, Lord, just like Gideon, I said, I'm going to lay this chemotherapy on your altar, because that's the only thing we haven't tried. But I'm also going to ask this fleece of you. If you want me to do chemo, then have my husband ask me. And that particular day, he was nowhere in
downstairs,
the sound of my prayer. Mm-mm. And he eventually he came upstairs, and he looked at me. He said, how are you doing? I said, I'm not feeling very well. I think I want to go lay down for a little bit and then come back and begin my work again. And so he proceeded to walk me to our bedroom.
Tuck her in
like he does. Yes, he's wonderful. And I laid down, and then the Lord led him into prayer. And so I'm going to let him tell you that story.
Yeah. Yeah, I in that, I just was watching her. Even when I walked her to our room, I just was thinking to myself, I'm watching her deteriorate right before my eyes. I mean, she's literally, just gotten worse. She would stumble when she walked, and just looked very frail and weak. And so when she laid down, and like I said, tucked her in, and I went in my office. I wasn't intending on going in there to pray, but I got in there and was kind of just piddling around with some stuff, and I looked out the window, and that's when I broke down, and I just cried out to God, literally. And I said what I just said. I'm watching her just, fall apart in front of my eyes. And God, I know that she has said that she does not want to do chemotherapy, and she's made that very clear. But that's kind of on my mind. And if we're saying we'll do anything you tell us to do, but we won't do something that you're trying to get us to do, then we really are not doing what we said, that we would obey you in anything. And so my prayer was, I don't want to look back and regret if this is what you're trying to get us to do by not asking her, would you consider doing chemotherapy? And if she says no when I ask her, then I've exhausted everything. And if you end up taking her home, Father, then I will not look back and regret, because I asked her, she said no, and I'm okay with that then. But if you take her and I don't ask her, I'm going to look back and say, were you trying to get this through to me just to ask her? And I wouldn't do it because I already knew her answer. So she had gotten up, and she was in her office, at this time. And I walked into her office, and I asked her, how are you doing? She said, I'm not doing well, and I don't want to do the progesterone therapy anymore. It's making me sick. I said, okay, that's fine. And that's when I asked her, I said, well, would you consider chemotherapy? Not knowing what answer I was going to get, but I did my part, and she started tearing up, and she said, well, there's my answer. She said, you asked me, and that was my prayer, and I, of course, had no idea. So that's how God directed our steps in that way, in a miraculous way, and use that for healing in her body. We've already talked about how the cancers come back. We know that. We knew that in the statistics when they told us initially, but one thing that we have learned, many things, but one thing we can talk about that we've learned through this is a lot of times God might tell you to do something that you don't understand. It doesn't work out exactly like you thought it was going to work out. But what you have to remember is He's God, you're not. And even if you do something that doesn't work out like you thought it was supposed to or was going to, it doesn't mean it was not God.
That's right.
At all. So remember that when you go through something, it's about obedience, trusting God, and He wants to use you for the purposes that He has. And He has used us in this to be a witness, to share the gospel, to pray, to encourage, to be encouraged by others. People that we met going through these treatments, and different doctors, and people that work the front desk. And God has just used us in so many ways in that way. So we know His hand's been upon it, even though the cancers come back. We're basically feel like we're starting over again. But we're starting over with Jesus, and that's all that matters. And so now we're going to see which direction He leads us now.
That's right. And I would love for it to be a miraculous way that He directs. Sometimes God does that, and sometimes He doesn't. And so I just want to encourage the body of Christ that we're just like Peter. Where else are we going to go, Lord?
Right.
Where else are we going to go? And so I just encourage you to, if you're going through a hard time, hang on to God.
Yep.
Hang on to Jesus.
Yep.
Because He cares about you, and He cares about every detail of your life, and you're not doing it alone.
That's
when you
right.
do it with Him.
Absolutely.
And so we love y'all. We appreciate you listening. And if we can in any way serve you through prayer, through
however God leads.
However God leads,
Yep.
please get a hold of us.
Yep. Absolutely. And we look forward to coming back and speaking to you again in God's timing.
That's right. See you real soon.